After a very interesting NBA season last year full of delays, canceled games, injuries, sickness, and that was all before the playoffs, fans are eager to get back to a sense of normalcy. Now, while we can't guarantee that will happen due to how we are still living in the pandemic era, things are looking to turn around in the NBA, at least in some good ways. And for some teams, that means shoring up their ranks to make sure they can make a run at the NBA title this year. The Denver Nuggets, for example, really want to make this work, so they went out and signed a recent addition to a big contract. Let us show you how the Nuggets signed Aaron Gordon to a 4-year extension. Number 5, the deal. Aaron Gordon has agreed to a 4-year, $92 million contract extension with the Denver Nuggets. That according to The Athletic. Denver Nuggets forward Aaron Gordon has agreed to a 4-year, $92 million contract extension with the franchise, his agent Calvin Andrews of Clutch Sports told The Athletic. Deal includes a player option for Gordon on the 25-26 season. The longtime Orlando Magic forward found a new home in Denver after the Nuggets acquired him before the NBA trading deadline last spring. Gordon played in 25 games for Denver last season. After the deal in March, he averaged 10.2 points on a career-high 50% shooting from the field and 4.7 rebounds. He entered the league as the 4th overall draft pick in 2014 and has career averages of 12.7 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. Gordon had season-best averages of 17.6 points and 7.9 rebounds for the Magic in 2017-2018 when he played a much greater role in the team's offense. Number 4, impact with the Nuggets. In the first round of the playoffs, Gordon's contributions helped an injury-plagued Denver unit eliminate the Portland Trail Blazers in 6 games before being swept by the Phoenix Suns. In his 10 postseason games for the Nuggets, just his career second playoff appearance, he averaged 11.1 points, 5.4 boards, and 2 assists per contest before Denver bowed out in the second round. His biggest impact was often felt defensively last season, where he held opponents to 3.2% worse shooting marks than their normal averages when he was guarding them. The athletic forward, capable of switching between the 3 and 4 spots, enters his 8th season in the league and turns 26 on Thursday. The Nuggets will move forward with Gordon joining a strong front court alongside NBA MVP Nikola Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. Star guard Jamal Murray will eventually return to the fold after rehabbing from an ACL tear and subsequent surgery last spring, so no doubt the hope is that with this presence on the court both offensively and defensively, the Nuggets are going to improve once their full roster is back. Some are wondering, though, if this massive pay extension is a bit overpriced, but in truth, it might just be what they need to right the ship and make a surge in a loaded Western Conference, especially given a certain other players' questionable playing time. Number 3, Michael Porter Jr. So as noted, one of the big players on the Nuggets is that of Michael Porter Jr., who is basically one of the wingmen to current MVP Nikola Jokic. However, the NBA is trying to crack down on a very specific thing right now, and that is COVID exposure. To the extent that the league is flirting with a rule that'll make it to where if you don't have the vaccine, you can't play in areas that require the vaccine to be indoors, say like New York City or Brooklyn. So why does this matter? Well, Michael Porter Jr. is someone who is on the anti-vax list, and as one reporter noted, he believes he can work through it without needing the vaccine. Michael Porter Jr. made his stance clear in that he's not comfortable taking the vaccine. Given that he's had COVID twice, his logic was that he knows how his body handled it and doesn't know how it'd react to the vaccine. The unspoken part, of course, is that it is impossible to know how he'll react to the new Delta variant. Well, it is a personal choice. The other unspoken aspect is that said personal choice can have a big impact on the rest of his team. If Porter tests positive again, or even if he's had a close exposure, he'll need to quarantine because he is unvaccinated. Close exposure for a vaccinated player doesn't mandate a quarantine. So, while I believe each player is entitled to their choice, each unvaccinated player needs to reconcile the personal versus team impact. What's Denver's margin for error until Jamal Murray returns, and can it withstand missing games from MPJ? Well, the NBA has implemented rigorous testing and different protocols for unvaccinated players, which could change a player's mind. While that player might be one to respect the player's choice, we have a different feeling on the matter, mainly in that there is so much foolishness and misinformation about the vaccine that it's clouding the issue that's right in front of us. Especially with the Delta variant out there, people and especially stars and athletes need to get the vaccine so that they don't spread it to others that they're literally in close contact with almost every single day. Plus, while he may have survived COVID twice, that doesn't mean he'll do it a third time. Or worse, he'll get it and then give it to someone else who won't be able to tolerate it like he claims he can. So there is a real potential for Michael Porter Jr. to miss a lot of games this season, depending on where they play, and thus getting Aaron Gordon on a long-term deal might help deal with that. They might have to lean on other players too, though. Number 2, Monte Morris. Monte Morris had always been steady as a rock for the Denver Nuggets. He barely played his rookie year, but in his second season, at 18-19, and third, 19-20, Morris was the embodiment of consistency. He was a low-mistake, high-floor point guard who helped others around him as a reliable decision-maker. Last year featured a version of Morris with slightly more aggression. It didn't show up as often in the per-game numbers, but he attempted a higher number of threes, 37.4% of his shots came from behind the three-point line, and a higher number of free throws, 18.9% on the free throw rate, than in any of his previous seasons. Morris was more sure of himself, more confident in his abilities, and he pushed the boundaries a bit more as a scorer. Now that manifested into 2 strong performances against the Trailblazers in Games 5 and 6, closing out the Blazers to the tune of 50 combined points and 14 combined assists. Now, in the upcoming 21-22 season, the Nuggets are hoping, perhaps expecting, Monte Morris to take a leap to increase his production and effectiveness in a way that he hasn't to this point in his career. With Jamal Murray, Denver's incumbent starting point guard, sidelined while recovering from his ACL tear, the pressure is on Morris to take a step forward in his own personal development. At 26 years old and just entering his 5th season, Morris has the capability to reach new thresholds as a player. If his goal is to become a permanent starting point guard in the NBA, then he's got a perfect opportunity to develop his skills as Denver's de facto facilitator. And number 1, stacking up. Regardless of who's in and who's out, and just as importantly, who's injured or not, the Denver Nuggets are going to have an incredibly hard test on their hands. Why? Well, the Western Conference is arguably more stacked than it has been in a while in various ways. It's true that in the bubble playoffs, they went to the Eastern Conference Final and gave the Lakers a challenge, but it wasn't enough to advance. Fast forward to last year's playoffs, and they were injured so much they got swept in the second round. And now the landscape of the NBA has changed once again, and several teams on the Western Conference are stacking the decks trying to get back to glory. That includes the Lakers, who brought back several players from their championship team in the bubble playoffs, as well as getting Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook to help out LeBron and AD. And then there's the Golden State Warriors, who seem to finally be ready to play at full power, pre-KD years of course, now that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are going to be presumably fully healed, fully rested, and ready to put their team back on the map and get a 4th title together. The Suns, they want to go back to the finals. The Mavericks want a deep playoff run this go-round as well, and other teams are wanting a piece of the action. So, while this move by the Nuggets may at first seem odd, they're doing their best to try and stack up against a conference that's going to be pretty tough once the playoffs come around next year. And they know if they aren't strong enough, they'll likely not even advance past the first round. So what do you think of this look at how Aaron Gordon is going to be playing with the Denver Nuggets for a while and earn some big money? Do you think he's much worth the effort that's been put into the contract? Or do you think that with him now in their lineup, that the Nuggets will make yet another run in the playoffs? Let us know in the comments below. We'll see you next time on the channel.